everybody. So I'm here joined with Lee from the CPAA today on the first of one of these coffee morning sort of chats. Well, it's coffee afternoon at this point. But me and Lee are going to get together more frequently in the Facebook group to answer any questions that you've got around the CPAA. And also, just to catch up in sort of what's going on in the next 12 months or so. So that there's a heck of a lot going on in the accountancy profession, accountancy and bookkeeping this next year. So it's almost, where do we start? But maybe, Lee, do you want to introduce yourself for those that don't know who you are and never seen you in the Facebook group? Go ahead.
Sure. So I'm Lee. I'm the operations manager at the Certified Public Accountants Association, CPAA. We are a relatively quite small professional association for accountants, primarily focused on small or micro accountancy practitioners. So hopefully, the sort of accountant that a lot of you are aspiring to be. So very much focused on kind of financial reporting, tax, smaller clients, mid-sized clients, being self-employed. Those are the kind of accountants that we represent. CPAA has been around since the kind of late 80s in one guise or another. Very recently, we started developing a series of professional qualifications, because prior to this, we were focused on qualified by experience accountants or those qualified elsewhere. So we launched 2 qualifications, so the first 2 stages of our professional qualification program. And we are now this year looking to develop the final stage of our professional qualification program.
Yeah, all good news. And we've been speaking about, we can't talk too much about it, so we're not going to delve into this. But there's all I'll say is there's a lot of exciting content coming out from the CPAA on that side. I'm trying not to spoil it. Why don't, for those of you that don't know, obviously there's a lot of talk sometimes about the different qualifications, like the ICB, the AAT, ICW, the CIMA, CIPFA, and obviously yourself, CPAA. There's a lot of depending on what route you want to go down would be how I would determine which one of those qualifications I would take. But it's interesting to me, those that are professional, qualified by experience or have come from a different professional body, who now go to you because of the support that you can offer to those members. So would you like to just fill us in a little bit about all of that?
Yeah, sure. So we offer quite a comprehensive training CPD program. So it's over 20 hours of webinar content every year, and it's all, like I said, focused on those small practitioners. So it's all like tax, it's all financial reporting as dealt with by small practitioners. So we don't cover like lofty topics, like you won't find audit or anything like that in there. We provide like AML support tools. So we have an entire package of templates and a full comprehensive guide that we developed in partnership with a company called In Compliance. So that's headed up by the guy that used to be head of professional standards at ACCA. So he developed this product for us. We also offer a dedicated support lines, whether it's tax or AML or more general compliance and ethics stuff, all designed to kind of help and support small practitioners. So that's always been like our focus, and like you said, qualified by experience has been a big part of it. So I was mentioning just before we started this call that we've just done our annual returns. So it's quite interesting to find out a bit more about our membership and kind of where they sit in the market and what they're doing and what they kind of need, and that helps inform what we've been doing. So it's interesting to note that about 60%, just over 60%, are currently regulated by HMRC as an AML supervisor, which indicates that they're still very much the kind of qualified by experience and sort of aligned only to us members. So it's interesting how we've built up this kind of support system, this network of qualified by experience accountants, and been able to deliver sort of support that they might not otherwise get.
It's always interesting to me that this is why we're really talking in this group about the CPAA, is how much you actually do for the sole practitioners, those that are starting out, who are like started with bookkeeping, moving into accountancy, vice versa, but want a professional body that can support them along that journey with all AML, as you say, CPD, the the technical helpline, etc. I feel like you should be at the forefront of most conversations when individuals are asking for a body that provides all of that.
It
So
can be so isolating, can't it, when you start out?
yeah,
Like you go from kind of maybe working in a practice or working in a company where you've got somebody you can talk to and somebody can bounce something off, and somebody's already done the letter of engagement, somebody's already done that bit of compliance. It's somebody else's job, and then suddenly you kind of sat there by yourself, maybe in your bedroom or your kitchen table, and you're faced with like, how do I engage a client? How do I make sure that I'm following the money laundering regulations when I'm doing that? Am I doing the right checks? Am I doing enough? It's knowing what kind of products and supports out there, and also being able to be confident that you're not wasting your money, because there's a lot of things that you can get into that are overkill, and you don't really need to do that much. And you might be
no,
spending money on time on things you don't need to do. And it's just confusing because it's not something that's ever really taught or that you have to do when you're working somewhere, and you're just thrust into it. And that's where hopefully we come in and we're able to kind of like, well, here's some assistance, here's some help, here's some support. If you need somebody to bounce an idea off, we've got somebody for that. If you need
yeah,
specific training or something maybe you've not covered, you might be, I come through like ICB or AAT, and you might not be fully confident on a particular area of capital gains tax, or you might not be particularly confident on, this particular sort of clients come through your door and it's like, I don't fully understand the tax implication of this. I need to bounce it off someone, or I need to learn how to do that. And CPA is there to kind of help support you as you make that journey.
I think that everything that you've said there, I can resonate with. I've been lucky because I worked in practice for a number of years. And yes, I didn't see the end-to-end process of onboarding clients, and we did a little bit of AML at the start of every client file, but it wasn't, this is what you need to do as part of onboarding and review. And that there definitely wasn't, information about client management and the next steps. It's like, okay, I know how to do my job, but I don't know how to do this other bit that I've never really had exposure to. So it's great that you support that. And actually, I again I can speak from experience that so I've got a really itchy nose. I think one of my hair is just like it keeps touching. Yeah, from experience, I find when I opened up the practice, it was actually really overwhelming knowing where to start. Even just from a point of, okay, so I've opened the doors. What do I do next? What's the next
Yeah,
step? You what? And you're just speaking then, the terminology such as annual returns. I bet half the people watching this and listening don't know what an annual return is. Never seen one before. Don't know what they involve. Little things like that you kind of take for granted if you've been involved in the whole end-to-end process. But then when you're almost shoved in the deep end to, okay, now as a sole practitioner, you're the sales team, the marketing team, the admin team, the all of it, and the technician and the business owner. It's a bit like, okay, what on earth do we do now?
exactly. And I mean, people come to practice from such diverse backgrounds. Like you said, you were
Mm,
lucky; you'd already worked in practice. But you know, if it's a big practice, like you said, you're not getting exposure to absolutely every part of it.
no,
If you come from industry, then it can be completely alien, kind of some of the stuff that you end up interacting with and how you deal with it. Um,
yeah,
so
and
it helps to have that supportive ear and somebody there that can help you.
you almost sometimes don't know what to ask because you don't even know you should be asking that question to some degree. If you've never been a part of a certain element, you just don't even know where to start, what to even start Googling, all the rest of it. So, yeah,
Because it can come down to things just like, well, what software am I going to use?
mm,
Because like, well, when I worked somewhere, the software was there. It was already in place. I didn't need to go and source it. I didn't need to evaluate different packages. I didn't need to decide what plan I needed or anything like that. It was all just there. And when you go
no,
into practice, you're suddenly faced with all these decisions and all this minefield of ever-changing compliance that you need to keep on top of, changing tax legislation and regulations, and nobody's spoon feeding the
AML.
CPD. You've got to find it yourself, and it's difficult.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
It's it's great that you're able to provide that sort of arm to lean on, to ask those questions to. And as you say, from my point of view, I don't know, when you're working in practice or even in industry, there's certain questions that obviously you're able to ask your manager, or if your manager doesn't know, then the person above them will know, or there's always somebody there. So having that, that technical guideline, or you can pick up the phone and ask that question if you really don't know the answer, or be pointed in the right direction of the CPD video of this over here. That's almost invaluable. You don't then feel like the book ends with me. I've got somebody else that I can ask.
Yeah, and I mean, like we were saying before, even through your training, when you start doing accountancy qualifications, so much of them are kind of focused on this like technical knowledge, and sitting you
Yeah.
down and assessing that technical knowledge over 60 minutes or 2 hours or whatever. And it's like, in the real world, that's not how it works, and in practice, that's definitely not how it works. You might be sat in a room alone by yourself, but you've got the internet, you've got a phone, you've got resources out there where you can find things out. You've got the time, and if you're planning your time properly, you've got the space to then kind of research and look over something and really get something right. The whole kind of training process, whether it's on the job or the exams, doesn't necessarily match up with what you can experience as a sole practitioner in real life.
Yeah, and not again, I try not to give too much away, but
That's okay.
the question that I'm always asked on the channel, on the YouTube channel, on the Facebook groups is, well, how do I get from point A of I'm looking at the textbooks and I understand the textbooks and I can do, the questions in there and I can follow the process, to then applying that in the real world of somebody's come to you to ask you to prepare a self-assessment return. And it's a case of, I remember being asked the first time to do a self-assessment for somebody and thinking, okay, I've been in accountancy for X many years and I've never done a self-assessment return. I don't even know where to log on to even do a self-assessment return. I don't even, what's this authentication code nonsense you're talking about? What is that? All of that actually gaining text to applicable real world practice knowledge, there's such a gap. And I understand from a professional body's point of view, sometimes it's difficult to get that across because you do have to have the text knowledge, fundamentals. But I think you do a really good job of bridging that gap. And I think to a lot of regard, really, that you don't, it's not talked about enough, just how well you do that.
Yeah, I mean, everything we do is trying to be practical focused and trying to be rooted in what practitioners actually go through, as opposed to being just purely theoretical. And it's accountancy. There's a wide body of theoretical knowledge that underpins it, but it's fine being able to rhyme off the FRS 102 or the International Accounting Standard for whatever. Like, that's great if you can do that in an exam setting, but in real life, you need to also be able to apply that knowledge to actual clients in a real world environment, and to explain that knowledge to people in a way that they then can understand it. Seen an interesting one recently where coming through to us, a client was annoyed that the accountant had used cash basis for preparing their self-assessment, because they felt that was simpler, and that they paid an accountant because they wanted the proper way of doing it. And it's like, well, that accountant has not done a good job of then explaining what they were doing and why they'd chosen to use cash base, because quite possibly it's more tax effective for the client. It's like that accountant had the knowledge to decide what the correct approach was to that client, but they've not then had the ability to communicate that to the client effectively. So the client's then gone away with this assumption that, oh, you've just tried to cheat me by using the easy way that I could have probably done myself. So so much of it's about these kind of additional skills and these additional bits of knowledge that you don't usually get in a lot of the exams that are out there and a lot of the training that's out there.
No, and you got to remember, Yeah, one of the biggest, I'd say, learning curves that I've found since opening the practice was that change from an employee to an employer mindset is just fundamental. You have to make that change, and it's not something that happens overnight. But it's so easy to forget that just because you have this knowledge, that you forget the client doesn't have that, and they don't understand accountancy lingo, and they don't understand why you're doing something. Um, so you make a lot of presumptions, or I definitely did when I was an employee. But you got to remember to communicate. Um, but yeah, I say these little coffee morning chats or coffee afternoon with myself and Leah just going to be 15 to 20 minutes. Every single month on a certain time, which I'm going to pop into the Facebook group to answer your questions on the CPAA and other elements too. So if you've got questions after this regarding the CPA, put them in the group because Leah's in there and you can contact him at any point and I'll try and answer where I can. But yeah, do you want to add anything before we go, Lee?
I mean, if people would like to just have a bit, see us have a bit more of a general discussion as well about kind of anything that affects small practitioners, I'm quite happy to put that in as well. And hopefully keep your eyes out because we should have some announcements coming out this year about additional qualifications and things that are a bit more different, things that are a bit different to how they usually are. So
It's
keep an eye out.
exciting. I know too much. But yeah, well, thank you so much for joining me, Lee. I'll end the stream here, but as always, yeah, any questions, put them in the group. Contact myself and Lee. We're on LinkedIn too. And yeah, I'll see you all in the group. So take care, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.